boy. Outside the net, yeah. It's way too hard at the outside the net. It's way too hard at the outside the neck. When I'm in my zone, bitch, I get my respect. Call me Bumpy Johnson.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Texas Sports World. We are your hosts. I am Ethan. That is Isaac, and we have a ton of stuff to get into today. First, we'll start off with Texans OTAs. A lot of stuff coming out there. A lot of no-shows. A lot of people did show up too. So a lot of stuff to get in there.
Showing up and not doing a job.
Some people showing up not doing a job. Just a lot of stuff going on there. And then you got SEC Media Days. Coaches talking about roster management, talking about the CFP playoff and all the expansion that could come with that. So we're gonna get into that as well. But first, how are you doing today, bro?
Working like a dog.
Working like a dog. Yeah, it was hot. It was hot out there today, boy. I tell you what.
It was a hot one.
Yeah. Also, I know we're off schedule a little bit. We were supposed to do it yesterday. I didn't get home from my day job till about 9:30. So we went ahead and just moved it to today, but don't worry, we will be on schedule the rest of the week. So yeah. Oh, well, yeah, you're right. I guess we will find out.
We'll find out. We're gonna learn.
Well, I guess we'll get it. What's up?
Yeah,
what you got?
I was just gonna talk about these guys real quick.
Oh yeah, let's throw in some Astros. We haven't got into a lot of Astros lately. Hunter Brown killing it. McCullers killed it yesterday.
Yeah, and you know what? I was hoping we could get on the pod yesterday because earlier that day he said, "What do we even have him here for? Why are we even here?" I said, he's been doing good.
Dude, I saw somebody.
He ended with 13 strikeouts last night.
He had 12.
I mean, who cares?
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, 12, 13, whatever. I knew he was going to be back. I knew Lance McCullers Jr. was going to be back. Everybody was sending him death threats for no reason. Figure that out because he's a dog and he's back. Renaud Blanco's not going to be back for the rest of the season.
Tommy John.
Jordan, who's been out since May 3rd, apparently is going to be back really soon. Don't know what that means.
They say that for Jordan sleeps wrong. He's out for 3 weeks. Like, yeah. I think wasn't he out last year for like 3 weeks because he had crick in his neck or something?
Yeah, nobody ever knows what's going on over there. But let's see, what are we doing right now? We are losing 2-0 to the Rays right now, so that's not good. Pitching staff ain't looking right, but you know what? It's okay because we're gonna get it back. We're gonna get it figured out. Hunter Brown's the diesel doing his thing, so shout out to them.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's kind of wild because it's of course as soon as Hunter Brown. I think I posted on the Twitter the other day. I was like, of course, when Hunter Brown starts, the offense gets their shit together.
Yeah,
because it's like, every other game it feels like for whatever reason. Unless you have Jose Altuve who's just hitting home runs, like he can't stop doing it. But if Jose's not hitting home runs and you don't have Jordan and the guy you just paid, all that money to play first base is batting under 200 right now, I'm pretty sure.
And Cam Smith's not playing bad though at all.
Yeah, Cam Smith is doing pretty good.
39 or something like that. He's doing pretty good.
Yeah. I'll take that. That's pretty good. And if they could get their freaking pitching staff, healthy again, healthy.
It would be great. If we could go a whole season with a healthy pitching staff, we might not lose a game.
I mean, the math is mathing on that one, if you ask me.
And it seems like every time somebody starts to get hot, somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
Like Renaud Blanco started the season off pretty rough. Started getting hot, then he got hurt.
Yeah.
So, sucks, but we move on.
And we're still second in our division, which is wild because it feels like every time I watch the game or see the score on my phone.
First last night.
You think so? I haven't paid too much attention if I'm being completely honest.
Sure. Maybe I know we're either first or second. I'm not.
Or tied for first, maybe is what I saw. Something like that. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the Astros, these are not the Astros of old. I think we can kind of agree with that. But nonetheless, they're starting to. But they've done this the last couple of years though. It feels like where they start off real rough. Last year. Now, of course, Bregman, as soon as he leaves and goes to the Red Sox, he starts the year above 300, winning player of the month. I think there was a month where Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman both won player of the month in different divisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why my eye looks like this. I got one closed eye. All right. Anyways, move on. Texans OTAs.
Yes, Texans OTAs. Yes. So the Texans OTAs, there was a lot of new faces, on the offensive line, a lot of new faces, just in general, and a lot of faces that showed up but didn't do anything. So here's one of the offensive line. So the first offensive line that went out yesterday was Cam Robinson at left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, and then at center was Jake Andrews.
Yeah, that's weird.
And, so I heard something interesting. I came upon something interesting when it comes to Andrews. So he played college at Troy. Okay. Who is our current offensive line coach?
Popovich.
Yep. He was the offensive line coach at Troy the last time that Andrews played center. So I'm thinking there's some familiarity there. And maybe, because for all intents and purposes, you don't want to have Juice Scruggs isn't your guy. Juice Scruggs isn't the dude. We've learned that.
Well, we don't know that yet. We don't know that.
I mean, I would not. In my eyes,
I don't think we know. Here's my thing. Now, not to keep talking about Bobby Slowick, but I think with him being in the building, I don't think we really know who's what yet. Like, I think it's pretty much a fresh slate for all the offensive line guys because, we don't know what the ins and outs were of the line last year. We don't know what any of those guys were really allowed to do.
Yeah. I mean,
so
that's a fair point. I mean, like you said, not to harp too much on Slowick or anything, because that's yesterday's news. So I mean, when you look at it through that prism, I can see what you're saying. I can see, that maybe, there's still some life there. A guy you traded up in the second round to get, maybe. But I would argue that just take Slowick out of the equation. Like, we get it, that was bad, but he just didn't play very well. Just because at the end of the day, you're a football player. Like, you should know how to. You've been playing football for a long time. It's not all on Bobby. You know what I mean?
I will say this though: what makes me nervous with the whole familiarity thing is if Pop didn't change his offensive line scheme since he was at Troy, and that's the reason that the dude is starting at center. That does not make me feel
I see what you're saying. I don't think it has anything to do with like the scheme. He's bringing it from Troy. Like, no, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like person to person, he knows how to get at him. He knows how to teach him. He knows how to coach him up. He knows the dude already.
Terminologies and things.
Terminology. Like that. He can work with them. He knows how to get him to take. I don't know. There could be any number of but that's kind of where my brain was thinking, kind of, because Andrews hasn't played center in the NFL at all in his career, and he was hurt all the last year. So it is an interesting. Maybe.
I think that's probably why he's getting the nod, because it's like.
Now, with that being said, we have to recognize that also CJ Stroud didn't practice yesterday. Yep. So, but he was there. And it was reported that off to the side, Jarrett Patterson was the one snapping to him. Now, usually you want your number one center snapping to your number one quarterback, right? Now, if your number one quarterback isn't practicing, then maybe you get your other and Jake Andrews is Davis Mills center. So rather than I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying maybe they put him in there just to see how it works. But really, I think maybe Patterson may be the center because he was one who was snapping to CJ Stroud.
Well, at that point, I think you're looking a little too deep into that. I don't think that matters at all. I think he could have been taking snaps from Juice. He could have been taking snaps from fucking anybody. I don't think it would have mattered because he wasn't in there to throw footballs yesterday. So It didn't matter who was snapping him the ball. Like, him and Patterson, I'm sure already have some sort of recognition with each other.
Sure.
And so does CJ and Juice. So it's not like, I think that's a little looking into.
Maybe. Fair enough. It just, I don't, because, and we can get into, why didn't CJ practice yesterday? Because we had this whole discussion where it's like, he's, what did D'Amico say? Some guys just have different,
off-season
schedules or something. Off-season schedules.
That's bullshit. Now look, I'm not hating on CJ. I think he's a dog and all that good stuff. But why not? If you're gonna show up, if you're gonna take the time out of your day to show up to OTAs, warm up why aren't you throwing? Maybe I'm looking at it, too deep, and maybe it's just a surface level thing. He just didn't feel. I just don't. What would hinder you from throwing? What would it harm? Like, what are you trying to achieve by not throwing?
Because at the end of the day, it's your football. Like you said, you're a football player. It's your job to. I mean, and like, are we really worried that like he's gonna throw it and like do something to his arm? Like you throw passes every day. Like I guarantee you, he's throwing it right now at training.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I would hope
He threw all off season.
Right.
That's what
I
I'm
would
saying,
hope
right.
he'd been doing that this whole time. So
why is it that when you get to practice, it's like, oh, I can't throw no more? You know,
And
like
I've never heard of a quarterback going through an off-season program where he doesn't throw the foot. Like, what is he working on that's so important
not
that he's
throwing.
not throwing the ball?
Right.
I'm not sure about that. I did never get a response from Damian Pierce, by the way.
Oh yeah, so that was funny. So our resident ball knower, DM'd it. So okay, yeah. So here's a list of the at least notable non-participants that has kind of been reported. Joe Mixon, but that was kind of known because he was kind of dealing with that ankle thing from earlier on in the offseason, so that's not that big of a deal. Christian Harris, I don't understand that. You hadn't practiced in 2 years, dude. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Justin Watson, whatever, vet day, cool. You don't want to be there. It's voluntary. Dalton Schultz, what are we actually doing here, my guy? I mean, it's already been out there that you might not even make the roster next year, regardless of what our opinions are. That's been talked about. Brevin Jordan, hey man, you were hurt last year. Let's maybe,
get back into it.
Get back in there. Why are we especially because now it's like who's catching passes at tight end, and then you had, Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce is another one. It's like, dude, you were a kickoff returner last year. You should maybe get in the building and get your position and like maybe learn the offense that you were that was your number one excuse your whole entire time here so far, that the offense just didn't fit you. Maybe let's get into the building where the new offense is and let's see if you actually fit in it rather than just not showing up because it's voluntary. Whatever.
Well, I don't know if he didn't show. Well, so here's my thing. Now, this is my little tinfoil hat kind of conspiracy theory. Outside of CJ Stroud, a lot of those guys are borderline chopping block guys.
I mean,
maybe something was told to them or something like that. Like, hey, brother, hey, DP, don't know if you even need to show up for OTAs this year or something. Like, maybe this isn't a them decision.
I mean, I think, or maybe it's more of a, we want to get these guys reps, and since it's voluntary, you guys don't have to be here. Maybe they came at it from that angle, so that like, rather than saying, hey, I don't think you need to be here, in like a negative light. Maybe it's like, hey, we got these young guys, we got all these new faces, we want to get them some reps.
But if I'm a guy like Damian Pierce, who I know my spot's not, like, I'm not sold that I'm the RB2 yet until I'm on the depth chart and we're in week 1. I'm not sold. Like, in my eyes, if I'm Damian Pierce, I'm fighting for that spot every day. So, I don't know. Just as a coach, from a coaching viewpoint, if I were a coach and my guys, like, I would, even though it's voluntary, I'd want all my guys to show up. Even if you don't want to take reps, just show up.
Right. Just be in the building,
Unless there's some crazy, like, which I doubt all of those guys have, but I'm saying if there's some crazy, like, off the field stuff going on, like you got to go, family emergencies or something like that, then there's no other reason you shouldn't be there.
Right. I think
because you don't have to take reps. Just showing up and being in the building kind of is important.
Yeah. And what makes it even more annoying is that, like, you had the likes of Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, those two guys. Now, granted, they're new to the team, but they're veterans. They've been in Laken Tomlinson, I'm pretty sure, hasn't missed a game in 10 years. Like, he hasn't missed a game since 2017. He doesn't need to be at voluntary practice right now,
Yeah.
Like, and now, granted, obviously, it's a new team. He wants to learn. I'm glad he's there. Thank God he's there. But and then you had like Nico. Nico shows up. He doesn't. He's another one that, because we didn't another name we didn't talk about that was a non-participant was Daniel Hunter. I don't need him there right now.
Yeah. You showed us that you know what's going on.
Right. Year. You know what you're doing. You know how to handle yourself. I'm not really worried about how you're gonna handle voluntary workouts.
My thing is, though, I just don't like when guys don't show up to voluntary workouts. I feel like it's a test. It's like, hey, this is voluntary. You don't have to show up. Now I know where your head's at with this team.
Right.
Because Will Anderson doesn't need to be there either.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, I don't even know why he's there. He didn't do anything there besides get a little
right. If you're not gonna if you're not gonna throw,
just don't even. That is something I feel like he just showed up just to save face and be like, hey, I'm here. I ain't doing too much today, but I'm just here. I'm here.
Because I think they said he went through he did a little bit of stuff, but he just didn't throw the ball. And I think he just didn't throw it in team. So I think he might have thrown it around a little bit here and there, but he just didn't throw it in team.
I know he caught one. I saw him catch a football.
Listen, why is our quarterback practicing catching? Somebody explain that.
Week 1, play 1, Philly special. Watch out for it.
Watch out. Book it. Calling it now.
Philly special.
Calling it now.
And then Danielle Hunter not showing up. Okay, I get it, but I'd argue you're not even the best defensive end on the team. So maybe let's do that. Let's show up next time.
Sure.
Thanks. Appreciate it. And I do like the fact that all of our secondary starters showed up. I do like that. Petrie, Sting, Lassiter, CJ, and Bullock all showed up, which is good in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they got a little chip.
Yeah, they did. I didn't see that.
Lassiter, they were running, some scout team stuff. Lassiter deflected a ball, started getting a little chippy, did his little head tap. I like to see it.
Yeah, I like to see a little. I mean, swarm.
Yeah,
swarming over here. Swarm City, right?
I like them. I like swarm.
Yeah.
I will say this. Still not confident about the offensive line moving forward.
I just real quick. So just because we kind of got off at center. So at left tackle, it was Cam Robinson. Left guard, Laken Tomlinson, Jake Andrews, Titus Howard, and then Blake Fisher and Ariante Ursery were kind of switching off at right tackle.
What was the starting line?
The starting line, from what I could see in the reporting on Twitter, was Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson, Jarrett Patterson, Titus Howard, and Ariante Ursery. Or sorry, not Jarrett Patterson. Jake Andrews. And then then it was Ursery was kind of going from him and Blake Fisher were kind of switching off between left tackle and right tackle. And then Titus Howard, interestingly, moves to guard. So I think that's probably right guard. I think that's kind of where he needs to be. Apparently, rumor has it that he slimmed up his body a little bit. He might have put himself in a better physical shape to play that type of position. So I think that's interesting. And then you had Jarrett Patterson at center, backup center, and Juice Scruggs as the kind of rotating at guard, left and right. But the good thing about Jarrett Patterson and Juice Scruggs to me is that they're both not great, but they're both playable and serviceable. And I think, if you have a left guard go down, okay, Juice or Jarrett can take that. If your center goes down, Juice or Jarrett can take that. If your guard goes down, Juice or Jarrett can take that. So you kind of give yourself some flexibility there. And I can get down with that.
I can't.
No?
No, I can't. I hated just about every name that you just said to me. And that's about the only guys that we can.
It is funny you say that because, when I was kind of looking around, I was like, these are the names. Like, these are the guys we're going to roll out there with next year. Like, this is the offense. Like, you can't objectively look me in the face and tell me that this offensive line room is anywhere better at all than last year's. You could argue they're worse. So, like,
that's what I'm worried about.
I know. And that's, kind of what we were talking about in previous videos. They're these Texans are very Bengals-like. They put in a lot of money into their weapons and in their defense, but their offensive line was just patchwork. And pray to God Joe Burrow can take us to a Super Bowl. And he did. But
here's the shit that pisses me off is
what pisses
everybody
you off?
On Twitter and everybody on the chats of the live streams and things like that keep saying, well, it can't be any worse than last year. You want it to not even be. First off, you don't want it to be worse than last year. So it definitely can get worse than last year.
But you also don't want it to be the same.
Yeah, but also the same is just as bad as worse.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
were the worst. So if you're the same, then you're still the worst,
The
which
worst,
is
yeah.
also bad. So let's not do that. Let's try to improve. And I'm
Let's
not
get
talking about
better.
going from 32nd to 31st. I'm like, let's get into the 20s at least.
Can we get to 23? 23?
23.
23. That
23,
can't
I
be that.
think we win a Super Bowl. 23, we win a Super Bowl.
23. Hot take of the day. If the Texans offensive line is ranked 23 or better, they win a Super Bowl. I'm not even sure that's a hot take.
I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's a lukewarm take. I think
Lukewarm.
Well, shit. Next year when Tank's back. I
you
did
don't
see
want-
Higgins and Noel
Yeah.
kind of doing their little this right here.
And go ahead, sorry.
Kind of hard to see. I'm not impressed, but also looked pretty standard wide receiver workout stuff. Like I didn't see anything that was like, oh shit.
Yeah, I still look. I really I really hope that they know something about these two receivers that we don't, because all I'm saying is if these receivers were so great at Iowa State, why didn't Iowa State win more football games? Are they really going to come into the NFL and make an NFL team win more football games? Is that the thought process we have?
That's a terrible take. That's a pretty bad take.
How is that a terrible take?
Pretty bad take. You can't. First off, they were the only 2,000-yard receivers or some shit like that. Same team, 1,000-yard something or whatever. Not really sure what the stat was. All I know is they both went for over 1,000, which is good. But don't act like just because you have two good receivers means that you're going to win more football games. I didn't really keep up with Iowa State last year. What I did know is that apparently they were pretty good offensively. Now, I don't know if their defense was worth the fuck, but if you get stopped one time and you can't stop somebody from scoring ever, then you're going to lose that game.
Okay, fine. But my point being, I'm worried that we're going to get into the season and be like, damn, imagine if we had a Emeka Egbuka.
Oh, we won't be saying that. I think we'll be more so like, damn, what if we had Luther Burton?
Or that, because Luther Burton would have been more reasonable because he was there.
And that's
Both
another
times.
thing. It's like that. I just feel like it was a different choice for the sake of being different from the Texans. Like, I didn't see one, like, realistically, especially Noel. Like, okay, I don't see why you're picking Higgins over Burton. Now, I can see why you're picking Noel the Noel pick wasn't bad to me.
Right, I agree.
Him where he was at. But
sure.
But the Higgins pick is confusing to me. Now, if he can turn out to be, everybody's saying he's Nico 2.0. If that's what it can turn into, okay.
I think we need to recognize it took Nico 3 years before he became Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Are we going to sit here and wait for now? Higgins could come out next year and be great, but I'm just saying, if we're saying that he's in the same mold as Nico, then it's not so crazy to think that maybe it may take him a second to get, to become an NFL acclimated, become an NFL receiver, much like it took Nico.
Well, D'Amico Ryan said something that kind of was like, ooh. And he was like, when we draft rookies, we don't draft rookies to develop. We draft them to make an impact on the team right now. Which tells me they're putting a lot of stock in their rookie pick. Which is, I feel like, is a little recency bias from them because, C.J. Stroud worked out. Will Anderson worked out. Kamari Lassiter worked out. Sting kind of worked out his rookie year. Bullock is doing good. Jalen Petrie did good. Damian Pierce did. Like, all of our rookies are hits pretty much besides the offensive line. So why wouldn't these guys be hits too? But eventually we're going to get burned on that shit.
Right. Bad. Because I think we've said it before. It feels like Nick tries to be smarter than it. Like, he tries to be smarter. Like with these draft day trades, it's like, you don't need to be doing all that, man. Like, stop trying to be smarter than everybody. We want to get the best value. Man, just pick a good player and call it a day.
Because then at least you could say with Luther Burton or Matthew Golden, like we picked the best player available.
Yes, because you can't say that with Higgins. You can't tell you. Listen, I understand that Burton may have had some.
I'll be right back. Hold on, sorry guys, you got to take the baby woke up.
Oh no. So basically, what I don't understand as a fan is yes, Luther Burden may have had problems when it comes to his route running. He didn't have an extensive route tree, but neither does Higgins. Like Burden, it felt like Luther Burden had more of the what's the word? I can't think of the word right now, but it felt like Luther Burden or Golden would have been more bona fide picks. Because now you got a Higgins and a Knoll that are, for all intents and purposes, unknown commodities. Now granted, like Isaac mentioned earlier, they both had very good college seasons last year. That's great. I'm super happy for them. But ultimately, the NFL is a completely different game. And these guys are playing in a Big 12 that was like a junior league compared to an SEC that Matthew Golden and Luther Burden were playing in. And so, and Nick and D'Amico have come out and said that or not come out and said, but they try to pick players from higher end programs because they want players who have been here and done that before. They want players that, like they said, can come in and start that aren't here for development. Now, I'm not saying never draft a player from anywhere else, but that's like, of course, there's other players at other schools. But when it comes to the needs you needed lined up with the eliteness coming out of that conference at that position, and you decided to go and pick a lesser school, you go pick a player from a lesser school, a smaller conference, or a weaker conference, and because I would argue that both of those players probably aren't going for 1,000 yards in the SEC each. It doesn't. It seems like it feels like Nick tried to outsmart everybody so that when they do hit, if they hit, he could be like, "I told you so." But if they don't hit and we as fans get mad, it doesn't. It's all of a sudden, oh, we did everything. We tried to pick the best player we could. Some players just don't hit. No, dude, because I'm telling you, there's no way that Luther Burden or Matt Golden have worse years, unless barring any injury or something crazy. But game for game, I would argue that you, because both of those players could come in and start. I don't know if Higgins or Knoll can do that right now. Because ultimately they are going to need to be developed. Ultimately they are going to, and that's specifically what you said you didn't want to bring players in for. So it's a very frustrating, thing because, like Isaac was saying, you have when Nick traded up for and when we drafted Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, those moments you're like, I'm glad we got us a GM that can trade. But then this year you're like, dude, I think he had like 7 or 8. I think he had double than any other GM. And it's just and all for Higgins and Noel and Ursery, basically. It's like, is that collection of guys better than the collection of guys you could have picked if you just decided to stick and pick? So, sorry. So basically, I was talking about Nick did all these trades. Okay, he did all. I think he had 7. I think it was like double than any other GM in the league during this draft. And he did it for Ursery, Knoll, and Higgins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to tell me that those 3 players are better than any collection of players you could have gotten if you just sticked and picked when you had your picks?
I think I'm torn on that decision.
Fair.
Is my answer. Because I feel like Nick has earned benefit of the doubt.
Okay. The same question. Okay, hold on. The question you asked me the other day.
But at the same time, I do think it was a dumb idea. I think it was dumb. And I think there was better players he could have picked that would have been like, okay, that's reasonable. Like,
sure.
At least it makes sense. Even if we're the dumbasses and whatever, and you were right all along, and you knew Luther Burton or Matthew Golden or whatever was going to be a bust, and I get it. I'm not saying I don't want what's best for the team, but at least it makes sense. So it's just a little frustrating when the shit doesn't make sense. You don't know, like, and they don't, like, if they were like, yeah, look, we scouted these guys since they were whenever, like, we just
Yeah.
really like, but they don't give us that. They're like, yeah, good ball player. Kid's a good ball player. He's tall, good physique, like him a lot.
Right.
Why do you
Right.
like him better than the other guy? That's what I want
Yeah.
to know.
I know you like him. You drafted him. But
Yeah,
tell me
why?
why?
Why
what-
him over this guy? What did you see? Like, is it a locker room thing? Is it a behind the scenes issue? Is it like, what is it that you like more, that you're more confident in doing that? Because it's
Right.
risky.
Yeah,
It's risky at the
exactly.
end of the day.
It is. And because, and if you look at it now, not where they were drafted, but in terms of talent and where I see them, you had Tet McMillan, not in order, but Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan. Then it was probably, I know I'm missing Emeka Egbuka, right? That's 3.
Mhm.
And then after that is when you had Matt Golden, Luther Burden,
and Higgins.
and Higgins. So Higgins is literally probably receiver 5 or 6 in this draft. So you did all that trading to get the wide receiver 6 in the second round?
I don't know, man. Our fans are weird. Our fans are ride or die. I will give them that because a lot of the people I see, it was like, why didn't you? Like, I think me and you might be the only 2 people who were like, why didn't you just trade up for Matthew Golden, which Nick said he tried to do.
Bull crap, dude. Here's the thing, man. Ultimately, you know what it is? I think Nick, like, again, going to the point, Nick wants to be smarter than everybody, so he needs to feel that he's getting more out of the trade than the other person. Regardless of if the trade itself helps the team, it needs to have 2 things. It needs to help the team, and he needs to get more out of it than the other team. Now, the way I look at it, listen, in this window that we have right now with CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, and all these guys, we got to go. We got to go get it now. Like, we can't do this, wait and see thing. Like, we got to go get it now. So why not make the extra move, maybe overpay a little bit, go get a Matt Golden,
Right.
go get, the fucked up thing is you didn't even have to trade for Luther Burden. You could have just drafted him.
Yeah, that's the confusing part is realistically what you could have done probably is draft Burden, trade up for Higgins.
And now you have Burden and Higgins.
And I don't see that as being a bad thing.
Right, Burden, Higgins, and you could still probably get Ursery.
Because I don't know what receivers went after. And you could have got Tez Johnson. Tez was still on the board.
Yeah, Tez. Yeah.
There were some other pretty solid guys that were still on the board.
It just like and it felt like as soon as the Texans picked him, there was like this first like, huh? And then everyone's like, oh no, and then all the announcers were like, oh no, he's good, he does all this, and then people are starting to hype him up, and it's like, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, he may be good.
I might be a casual. I watch a lot of college football. I don't keep up with, Big 10 stuff, which I think is
Big
where
12.
they're at. Big 12.
Yeah.
I don't keep up with a lot of that. I didn't hear much of either one of them.
Either one. And it's and I think there's an argument to be made where it's not even about being a casual. It's just like it's the bona fides. Like I said, we're in a window where we need bona fides. We need guarantees on the box, because they said themselves they don't want to bring in guys to develop. They said that came out of their mouth. Yeah. So why did you bring in guys that are clearly going to need to be developed? All 3 of them.
We don't know that though. Okay.
Fine. We don't know that, but I'm willing to bet it.
Here's my thing.
Because if they don't hit, then we're screwed at receiver, because we don't have Tank. We only have Nico. So those 2 have to hit.
Well, that, and also like we think so much of, like, everybody's like, well, trust Nick, trust the process with Nick. He drafted so well and da. Fine. Look at where Damian Pierce is at now. Look at where John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson are at now. Tank
right.
was a non-factor up until the back half of the season before he got hurt last year. So how good is he really drafting these guys?
Right. So for every one that you for every one CJ, there's a Dameon Pierce.
Right.
So like, is he even hitting at a high clip for real? Because you could argue, that's the question.
Look, we're relying on 3 rookies. We would be the best drafting. Nick Caserio would be the god of drafting players if all 3 of those guys hit.
If all 3 of those guys hit, they need to build a statue of Nick Caserio on Kirby.
One of those guys, at least minimum, maybe 2, but it's probably more likely, aren't going to be. I'm not saying busts, but probably just journeymen.
Are they going to live up to their draft slot? Is the question.
Correct. Which, I mean, I think that's the getaway free card, because they weren't drafted. They weren't super high value picks, but outside of Higgins. So if they suck, it's like, well, didn't spend that much on him. It's not like it was a first, but it's like that was what we had to work with. Like we had to get the best value out of that spot. So the question isn't like here's my fear. Luther Burton is a good wide receiver. He played at a shitty Mizzou.
Yeah.
You knew Luther Burton's name, even though
exactly.
You didn't know Higgins' name, even though he played.
Unless you were a Big 12 follower.
Fan. Right. Which I'm not. So
neither am I.
And I'm not even a big Mizzou guy. Like I'm an SEC guy, but I didn't even follow Mizzou like that.
Right. Sometimes I forget Mizzou's even in the SEC.
Right. I just knew Luther Burton.
Right.
I knew he was really good. That's it. Now maybe they saw some clips against some teams where he didn't do much. Okay.
But there's because there's players on the team currently that don't do much. So like that can't be a criteria for not drafting a dude.
I just want to know because if they're like, oh well, we want to draft guys who, are consistently performing at the college level when they draft these guys. That's why they drafted Mechie. But that doesn't automatically mean it's gonna work, because Mechie's not working. You know what I mean? So it's like, what is the criteria for drafting these guys?
Right. And to go against my argument earlier about, I think you weren't here, but about, drafting guys, they've come out and said that they want, or I don't know if they said it, but the data shows that they want to draft team captains from big programs, because they want guys that have played in the fire. They want guys that can hold a locker room together. They want those types of players. And I'm not sure if drafting 2 people from a shitty Big 12, now granted, Ursery played in the Big 10, so I guess there's that. But he played at a shitty Big 10, and the Big 10 isn't even like, and we're gonna get into the Big 10 because that had a lot of stuff to do with the SEC media days, and there's a lot of stuff going about scheduling. We'll get into that, but we're talking about a shitty big, like the bottom half of the Big 10 is not good outside of Oregon, Ohio State, and most of the time Michigan. It's not.
I disagree. I think the Big 10 is pretty good. I think Minnesota was a good team.
Okay.
And I think Irsay is a good player. He reminds me of, like, he's not a guy you draft to start today. He's a guy that you draft to kind of build up, and if he has to go in, then it's a pleasant surprise when he's in. Oh, he's actually a lot better than I thought he was going to be. Maybe that development window is a little bit shorter. But I don't think. I know if he goes out there and lights the world on fire and doesn't allow a sack all season and can. I mean, he's just a big fat dude. So if he can run block and be athletic, and if he doesn't allow a sack, great. Now, what about these other 2?
Right.
Because we've had one good lineman before. We've had one good tackle before. That didn't really do shit for us. That doesn't move the needle.
Right.
So even if Irsay goes out there and he's a stud, what about the rest of the line?
Right. We were 2-14 with an all-pro left tackle. That clearly doesn't make a difference.
Right. What are we and I'm willing to bet he's not going to be as good as Laremy Tunsil.
No, absolutely. And there was some reporting. So there was some reporting out of camp yesterday that he had some issues with a speed rush. That tells me he's got some feet problems. That's not a great start. Now he's a big enough, strong enough dude that if he gets his paws in you, you're not going nowhere. But we're talking about a league with the Bosa brothers. We're talking about a league with name a defensive end, because he got beat by Savion Byrd, who was a 7th round defensive end from last year. So like the gap between what he's facing right now and voluntary workouts is going to be so different than what he's going to go out there and play and see
I will
on
say
Sunday.
this: it'll help his progression and development that he has to go against Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter in training.
Sure. Maybe that expedites the development. I'm
But
not arguing.
that's also a slippery slope, because last year's O-line was getting their ass kicked in training camp by that same defensive line, and everybody's like, "Well, it's just a really good defensive line."
Defensive line, and it was, but the offensive line was just that shit.
Listen, I would much rather this offensive line come out. I want to hear reports from camp like, "Hey, this D line does not look good," because that tells me that this offensive line looks really good.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see coming out of training camp. Defensive line looks like shit, because I know they're not. They've proven that. They didn't get worse at defensive line. They kept the same guys that made them good. They're still going to be good.
Right.
So if they look like shit in training camp, that means the offensive line is doing their job.
Right. And honestly, I'm kind of coming around to the Kaylee thing, and I'm really hoping that as we get deeper into this, that we don't see the same reporting we saw last year. You know, where it was like, you know, is this offensive line going to be able to hold it together? They were like, we didn't know what to expect, you know, and then, you know, you think you could hang your hat on Laramie. You were like, all right, we got LT. But after that, you're talking about a Titus Howard who doesn't know if he can play guard or tackle. You're talking about.
Well, I think I'll say this. I also think that the development of the offensive line men that we have drafted so far is getting so, like, we're trying to draft guys that don't have a position on the offensive line. Like, we go into a draft looking for guys that just play O-line. You're not a left tackle. You're just an O-lineman, because that's what we're going to need from you, because we don't need a left tackle. We just need an offensive lineman.
Yeah, and if you're a left tackle but you can play offensive lineman, you might play guard here.
Yeah. if you've grown up your entire life playing nothing but guard, you're probably going to be the starting right tackle for the Houston.
Yeah, right. You're probably going to be center. Yeah, it'd be crazy. Also, we get a report Ursari's playing center. I'd just crash I would delete the Twitter account.
It does just draft and pick and trade and sign guys that are good at their position. That's it. That's all you need.
Right.
The thing is, the margin for error with our line is like so small. They can get just this much better, and like everybody's job is safe.
Yeah. Like you said, if we could go from 31 or 32 to 23, you're talking about a 3 or 4 win, you know, that's a difference, you know what I mean? So I think they gotta figure something out on the offensive line preferably before week 1, because they tried that last year and it just went downhill from week 1. So
I just hope somebody, man, I hope Nick Caley got that swarm.
I hope he got that swarm.
I hope he got that swarm, because that's kind of what we're hoping. That's what we're banking on right now.
Yeah, I mean, because if he comes into this season and has anything, like, if the offense looks the same as it did last year, who do we even look to at that point? Like, do we even?
That's the problem.
That in and of itself is the problem. Yes, I agree.
That is the problem. Because what are we supposed to do?
Right, because you already fired your offensive coordinator. You traded Laramie Tunsil. You brought in some new dudes.
I mean, for Nick Caley to get fired this year, we would have.
He's gonna get at least 2 years. It'll be at least 2 years before it's even.
So if we go 2 and fucking.
Oh well, no, but I don't see that happening. Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, what is acceptable in a Nick Caley offense? What if it's worse than last year? What if we only win 9 games or 8 games? Then what?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks with how they kind of tinker with, because at the end of the day, I'm confident in our secondary. I'm confident in our quarterback. I'm confident in our defensive linemen. I'm confident in our linebackers. The only position on the field that I'm not confident with right now are offensive line and receiver. So we're gonna
And
find
running back.
out.
'Cause
And running back.
If Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon don't start the season, that's not good.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
this Joe Mixon injury is
Lingers.
if it's a lingerer, then we're in trouble.
Yeah. Because what are you gonna run out there with? Are you gonna run out there with the running back from USC?
I'll take Dameon Pierce. I will take
No,
Dameon
I know.
Pierce.
I would much rather Dameon Pierce be RB1 for sure.
I'm just saying, that's my thing though, is it seems like when Joe Mixon is not playing, DP's also not playing. I don't know, man.
So weird. That's so weird. I see it's weird because if I'm DP and Joe Mixon is out, I'm like, where I'm coming in at.
Yeah,
I'm in every single huddle. Like, can I play? Can I get in?
Let me get in.
You know,
I'm talking to the coaches. Coach,
I'm in their ear. I'm like, Coach, you got a mistake. Let me be in there. I'm in their ear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to be.
But instead he's a no-show, and it's like how do you expect anybody? Because like you said in your DM, you're out here on Texans Twitter fighting for your life with this dude, you know, and trying to defend him, and then he just doesn't even show up. It's like, man. Anyways,
yeah.
Yeah. We have gone. I think we have beaten the offensive line to a pulp in this video. We've done it for 47 minutes, and we haven't even got into the SEC media day. So let's transition into that for a little bit, and then if we have anything else at the end, we can come back and tag it here. So SEC media days in Florida. Also, the first. Did somebody shit? It smells like shit. Somebody come in here and shit in here.
Dude.
Sorry. Also, the college football 26 trailer dropped today.
The best wide receiver in the nation on the cover. Ryan Williams.
I would say the Ohio State receiver is better. But anyways, so there's been some interesting, like, for instance, there's been a kind of thing going around about the SEC and the Big Ten kind of merging but staying separate at the same time, in the sense that their schedules they would make schedules together. So like it would be a I think I saved it. It was like a 5-5 or 5-4-1-1 9 or 5-4-3. I don't know. But basically it was going to be like you play your 5 SEC game, you play 5 SEC games from one side, 5 SEC games from the other, and then one Big 12 game or one Big 10 game, and then one non-con or something like that. So like that way it makes it easier when it comes to, in my opinion anyways, figuring out which conference is really superior in reality. And that could help.
You only play one.
But you only play one, but I'm talking it's the entire SEC. It's the entire SEC versus the entire Big Ten.
Okay.
So like now, granted, it's
stupid.
Why do you think that?
I'm not a fan, because man, the part that makes college football is the fact that yes, the SEC is dominant, has been greatest conference of all time to ever exist in the history of the world. Bingo, bango, bongo, pussy boy. Get it. Big Ten on the come up, one of the other powerhouses. Consider it AFC, NFC kind of deal. The part that makes college football so much more exciting is the fact that there are those other teams and those other conferences. Because any given Saturday, you could go out there and watch the Citadel. Literally, in this decade, the Citadel, an FCS school, beat South Carolina, an SEC team. In a football game, they beat them. In real life.
In a real life, yeah.
Beat an SEC team in real life. So who cares? Who cares who's better at football? SEC fans are going to be SEC biased. Big Ten fans are going to be Big Ten biased. The Big 12 is still important. The Mountain West Conference is still important. The Sun Belt, all that stuff.
No, there. I'm not. It's not about important. It's not about important anymore. It's not about that anymore. Not when you're talking about a 16-team playoff. Not when you're talking about. It's about you got to get the best teams in there. So
then let's fuck it. Let's just put a 25-team playoff in. The top 25, all teams get in. Listen, as an Alabama fan, now maybe I just feel a different way because I grew up watching Nick Saban and the way he did things. There should be no handouts. Alabama didn't get in last year because they didn't win the games to get in. South Carolina didn't get in last year because they didn't win the games to get in. That's what it is. Regardless of, we play a harder conference. Don't care. Win your games. Because guess what? There's just as many easy SEC games as there is top-tier hard SEC games. You're not playing Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas, all at the same time. You still got the Vanderbilts and the Mizzous and the Mississippi States and the Kentucky, and those teams still exist.
Okay.
So go out there and win your games. You got to win your football games. That's it. The 12-team playoffs is fine. We don't need to expand to 16 because when we expand to 16, guess what? We're not fixing the problem. We're just, what about this 5-loss team? This really solid 5-loss team that should be in.
No, I don't see it going that because it's never been that. It's never been about that the argument's never been that there was a 5-loss team because ultimately if you get to the 16, because you can't we've said this already on the pod. What we can't have happen is the same thing that happened last year. We can't have because ultimately those teams that got in arguably probably didn't deserve to be there. Now they because they just didn't. Okay, if you can't look me in the face, and I get it. Arizona State, congratulations, you played a good Big 12. You played good in the Big 12, but I was in the Big 12 as a Texan. I'm brand new to the SEC. I'm not I used to fight for the Big 12, but at this point I've seen the week to week gauntlet of the SEC, and the SEC put out something today illustrating that no team, no conference has a harder schedule or gauntlet than the SEC. So why is the SEC that should be rewarded? That's the point. That should be you should be rewarded for playing good teams. It's become, like Greg Sankey said, it's become more about, what did he say? Where'd it go? I can't find it. I just had it. Oh, it's clear. It's become more about not losing than winning, is what it's been around. So now you have teams.
No, it's not. Greg Sankey's a fucking goofball. No, it's not. The only reason Boise State and Arizona State got in is because they won more games.
No, they only got no. I disagree. They only got in because they were ranked way too high to begin with. That Boise State team should have never been there.
Their games.
That's my point. They won. So you're saying that the Boise State games that they won are just as even as the Alabama games that they won?
No.
That's my point.
No. Here's what I'm saying. If I'm in the SEC, here's my proposition to fix it. Make me the fucking commish. Here's what I'm saying. If I'm Alabama, I'm going to use Alabama as an example. First and foremost, Kalen DeBoer, you stupid bitch. You stupid bitch, I hate you. I love you. Let's figure it out. Let's go win a natty next year, but I hate you so much because he came out and said something like, oh, well, if other teams had to play the schedule that we play, shut up. You lost to OU and Vandy and Tennessee. Argument invalid. That's it. That's all there is to it. Get back to the drawing board, brother. That's it. There is no, we played a hard schedule. Don't care. Don't care if you beat Georgia because you can't beat Georgia. Get rewarded for that. You did. We were the number 1 team in the nation after we beat Georgia.
Yeah.
Then you lose to Vanderbilt. What argument do you have? Oh, well,
right.
We play in tough SEC. Don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Be better.
Don't care. You have a top 2 recruiting class every year. Your team is loaded with 5 stars. That's the difference. Alabama's roster is way better. Texas's roster is way better. Georgia's roster is way better. Tennessee, LSU. The SEC rosters are way better than Boise State's is. So it's a little – here's what I'm saying. If Alabama has to go out there and they have to run through the SEC gauntlet, and so does every other SEC team, that's okay. Keep that the same. Keep the Big Ten stuff the same. But our non-cons have to be against those other teams. So the Boise's have to not just play an SEC team, play the top tier of these teams. You know what I mean? So instead of Boise State rolling through and their non-con being FCS teams, you don't earn. That's a luxury. That's that's a luxury to play those games. If you're in a struggling conference that's not as powerful, you go play in Ohio State. You go play in Oregon. You go play at Texas. You go play at Georgia.
Okay, so let me ask you this: so if Ohio State or not, if Boise State plays in their shitty conference, but their non-cons are Ohio State and Oregon or whatever, and they lose those 2 games, but they win their next 10, are they still ranked in the top 25 because they played those 2 games?
Top 25, yeah, not top 12.
No, man, no. You don't get rewarded for losing games.
It depends on the clip of those games. What is the score? What is the box score?
No. You just said it doesn't matter.
It
Win
does
win
matter.
or win or loss, win or lose. Did you win or did you lose?
If a
Because
Boise State
because
team
we
goes
could
out
argue
there-
we could argue that Boise State's they're what? Okay, so what? Let's call it 41-17.
then yeah, no, you got blown out by a competitive team. Move on.
I'm saying, but would you still? But they go and win their next 10 in their conference in the Mountain West. Are you still
I would
ranking
have
them in
to
the top
see-
25?
I mean, that's what the job is. Is you got to look at that and say, okay, well, what did their teams that they beat play? Who did they play, and how did they fare against?
See,
Those
but that's a
teams?
rabbit hole. That's a rabbit hole because we tried to do that last year, but teams were losing to teams that beat other teams, so you can't do transitive properties like that anymore.
Sure. Okay. Final
That's how they
statement
got
is
up
this.
there.
Final statement is this: strength of schedule has to. It's seeming like strength of schedule is becoming more and more the number one criteria.
Which is why they want the SEC and the Big Ten to play together, so the scheduling is harder. So that's
But
what
then,
how I
what, then you're going to have an all 16 Big Ten SEC playoff.
No. They're just talking about they literally just want. I think they want four automatic qualifier spots. That's it.
I think that's just Greg Sankey in the SEC, and I think that's bullshit. I think we're being a bunch of whiny pussy babies.
They already had it but
The SEC and Greg Sankey and all the SEC coaches are being soft as hell. You play in the Southeastern Conference. We're supposed it's just embarrassing, is what it is. We're supposed to be the gritty, rough and tough South guys that don't give a fuck. We'll play you anywhere. We're gonna run the damn ball down your throat. You're not gonna be able to stop us. We're more aggressive than you. We're tougher than you. We're more physical than you, and we're just better. It just means more. That's the fucking slogan for the entire conference. We're the only conference sitting here bitching because our teams didn't get in. Win the football games then. Oh, well, South Carolina was one of the hottest teams last year. And if they 2 field goals away, don't let them be 2 field goals away from to win them. Win them. Don't let them get in the field goal range to drill them. Have a better offense. Scout better. Recruit better. Put the better guys out there. That's the answer to your question. It doesn't come down to who plays a harder schedule. It doesn't matter. Yes. Yes, it does matter. When you're playing Alabama and Georgia. But when you're going out there and you're losing to bad teams, then you can't argue strength of schedule. Does that make sense? Now, if your team is loaded with Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, if you're playing 4 or 5 of those games, okay, we can have that conversation. But when you're playing 2 or 3 tough games and you lose, not those games, but to the bad teams, what is the argument there?
I guess you're right. Don't lose to the bad teams. Ultimately, that's what screwed us up last year. And I think if I'm being honest, it feels like what they're doing is a knee-jerk reaction because they don't want to see another Boise State playing in, whoever I think they played Penn State first or something like that. They don't because and Penn State's really Boise State. Now Penn State should have probably won a fucking national championship. They had it playing Boise State first. You had to eat it. Now, granted, Texas had Arizona State, and we almost shit the bed on that one. So I understand that maybe adding
and that's another thing. That's another thing. Texas is considered a top team in the SEC in the nation, and they struggled against Arizona State, who was not even supposed to be there. So how do you argue? Why do we get 4 auto bids? Obviously, they proved that they could be there. At least Arizona State did. So
I'm not
what
saying
is the argument?
I'm not saying every team. I'm not saying every team didn't have an argument to be there, because out of the teams that made it that probably shouldn't have been, I would say Arizona State was probably the one team that could put up a fight. Like, because SMU didn't do anything for me, and Boise State didn't do anything for me.
I mean, Clemson's supposed to be a really good team, and they struggled.
No, that's why I didn't mention them. That's why I didn't mention. I think, but Clemson, I think, deserved to be there.
What about Iowa or whatever it was? Illinois, Iowa, not Iowa State. The Cyclones or Hawkeyes or whatever they are.
They weren't in the playoffs this year.
Somebody was in the playoffs. I forget who it was.
It was the three teams were SMU, Boise State, Arizona State, and then Clemson, Penn State. Did I already say SMU?
Yes.
Okay.
Notre Dame,
Georgia,
Texas,
Tennessee, Ohio State, duh.
Oregon.
That's 11. And what's the other one?
Bro, I'm telling you, it was like Illinois or something like that. Or
No,
Iowa.
Illinois.
Hold on. This is bad reporting on me. It was this. SMU, Penn State, Boise is who we missed. Georgia, Indiana Hoosiers.
Oh, Indiana.
They didn't deserve to be there. That's a team that did not deserve to be there.
Yeah, I agree.
So here's this. Here's what I'm saying. You got to give those guys a shot. As annoying as it is, even though I don't necessarily believe that SMU, Clemson, Indiana, or any of those guys were better than Alabama, I do think that they should have been in over them. And what's it called? South Carolina and Ole Miss. Because you can't phase those guys out because they play in a weaker conference.
Well, I would say this. I see your point because you don't want to. It's a slippery slope. That's a fair point. That if you just start allowing every SEC team in, then what are we really even playing the regular season for at this point?
Yes, even though the strength of schedule is harder, like those weren't like the games that we lost to kick us out of the playoffs weren't the difficult games.
Right, weren't the difficult ones, right?
And the games that South Carolina lost, they could have won. They were 2 field goals away from winning those games and making the playoffs. So it's not a matter of they were just a tough team and we just couldn't beat them. So so I just can't beat these teams, but I deserve a playoff spot. Like that argument doesn't make sense to me. And I will say this, it seems more of a brand thing than a playoff thing. What they can do is this: have your top teams say for some reason Texas loses 2 or 3 games next year, or 2 games. Let's call it 2 games next year. And they get in at the 8 spot. And Boise State goes 12-0, and they get in at the 7th spot. Let's re-rank that because we know Texas is better than Boise. Don't leave them out. Maybe put them at a lower seed. Then you can have them the first round of playoffs. How it is everywhere is the best teams face the worst teams in the playoffs. Don't kick them out completely. McNeese State was in the damn March Madness bracket. Who the shit is McNeese State?
Well, there's also 64 teams. It's different.
Okay, but the point remains the same. The structure remains the same. Yes, let those little guys have a chance. That's what an underdog story is. Because I guarantee you damn money, if Boise State goes in there and whoops up on Texas and Ohio State and Oregon and then Notre Dame to win the Natty, it's like, oh, shit, that's crazy. That'll pull in views.
I mean, it would take – I don't know. Because I don't – so you're saying you would rather for the enjoyment of the game have a 10-2 Boise State rather than a 9-3 Alabama, for the sake of keeping it honest.
I'm
in terms of like
fan.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And then it keeps, then it really is about. But then it's all about, I don't know, because then because Boise State's strength of schedule was so shit. So
but that's my whole thing.
So does strength of schedule matter or not?
It does matter, but it's not on a linear scale like everybody's making it seem, because like Boise State's strength of schedule and Alabama's strength of schedule aren't the same. strength. Like the teams that we find difficult are the teams that they find impossible to beat damn near.
Right.
Does that make sense? So,
Sure.
like, you can't hold Boise State to the same criteria as Alabama because Alabama should beat Vanderbilt and they should beat Oklahoma last year and they should have probably beat Tennessee and they should have beat Michigan. Boise State probably shouldn't have beat those teams. Maybe 2 of them. Right? But now that's being called, oh, we lost to 4 good teams. When did they became good after they beat Alabama? Because they weren't good going into the Bama game.
Right.
Nobody was looking at Vanderbilt before they beat Alabama like, oh shit, hey, that's a solid team. They beat Alabama and then it was like then they kept it close against Texas. Now they're a tough team, but they weren't tough going into it. So you gotta, and that's just what college football is. Because there's overreactions everywhere. And that's kind of the beauty of the sport. It's so wild and it's so confusing that you don't really know. Like, there is no correct way to do anything in college football.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, we're going to have to look into the structure of how they're going to do it a little bit more. I'm sure there'll be some stuff coming out about it because, because I don't know, man. It just feels like the SEC was just trying really hard to make a point that because there was an anonymous coach that or somebody that said I think it was an anonymous coach saying the SEC saying they're the best football conference is like the NFL saying they're the best league or the NBA saying they're the best league or MLB saying they're the best. It's like no shit. Like, so what was the point of this? What was the point of saying that y'all play the best? The angle was, we play the best, so we should get more in. That's literally what they're saying.
But why, though?
Simple. They play the better team, so they should get in.
You can say that, but that's history because the SEC wasn't the best conference last year. The Big Ten was the best conference last year, technically, in terms of record and beating each other. I'm pretty sure the Big Ten had a better record against the SEC. So the SEC it's a conference that eats itself alive.
Yeah.
That's what it does. That's what it's always done. So, like, I don't know. There is no fix to that. Because guess what? Okay, so you expand it to 16 teams and you have the Big Ten and the SEC play each other more. The SEC's still going to eat itself alive.
Right.
Like, that part's never going to change. So, okay, so say we do that and then Bama still loses 3 or 4 games, but they get an auto bid because they played a harder schedule. Okay, why can't we just have the Big 12 play? Why don't we have the Big 12 play the Big 10 and then the other one play the SEC? I feel like there's better ways to go about it than what everybody else is talking about.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to get back into that because I feel like there's a lot of meat on that bone. Because ultimately the college football landscape is ever changing. For instance, Kirby Smart says they're having to pay kids $20,000 to keep them committed. That's insane. Meanwhile, SMU
Sark said, "Hey, we didn't pay $40 million for our team."
Oh, so you're telling me that's a $25 million roster? Bullshit. Who are you lying to?
Absolutely.
Because at the end he was like, I would have loved to have an extra $15 million, so you only spent 25. Crap, bullshit.
Oh, okay, buddy.
Okay, boss.
Whatever you say, man. Hey, we know we know what else Sark is throwing in there. Me and you know.
We don't know nothing.
I don't know nothing.
We don't know nothing. I'll let anybody play.
All right.
All right. Well, that is it, I think, for this episode of Texas Sports World. We are your hosts. I'm Ethan. That is Isaac. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you watch this later, reach out to us. We got a lot of things to say, and we like to hear everything you got to say. So have a good rest of y'all's evening, and we will see y'all tomorrow, 8:30 sharp. Later.
I'm with that beefing on the net. Tell me what's next. can't listen to the hype. Wanna know that you've been mixed with lies. Love it like your favorite cocktail.